no idea when Dev starts on this.
Oh, me neither. Is it now?
It can't be now. There's no way. Wait, it's coming up. Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Places.
The history of film. That Balahooey when the lights go dim. From James Cagney to Nosferatu and stunts that shock you and dirty tricks the studios made. From Wings to Top Gun, movie stars and no ones, romantic crazy fans that leave no real unspun. Hollywood is film history in Hollywood. They chase the Oscar, but it's all a sham, just like Shaq and Kazam. All your dreams can come true. Film history, the history of film. All of it made for you.
Good God, that was terrible.
Should we officially start?
Let's go ahead. Let's do this, guys.
Cool.
Let's fucking do it. This is Film History, the history of film. What up, Dev? How the hell you been, brother?
What's up, y'all? I've been good.
Let's get this back to going, and now we got our third partner in crime now, Mr. Drake Cummings on the mic.
I'm happy to be aboard this sinking ship.
Yeah, man. Here we go. Might as well get on board another sinking ship. We had absolutely no technical difficulties getting this set up at all.
I'm impressed it only took us an hour and a half.
Yeah, it only took an hour and a half, and there was a lot of echoing. But hey, laughs were had by all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We didn't let it get us down, and here we are doing film history.
The history of film.
So today's episode is going to be about old James Cagney.
Who?
Yeah, see? That's actually that came from James Cagney. He's like the first one to do, see?
Interesting.
So
Did other people... Sorry, Dev, go ahead.
All of the old Dick Tracy stuff was all based off of James Cagney, like the copper, like the old bad guys and stuff.
Yeah, that was old Cagney. We've been doing Cagney ever since Cagney was Cagney.
Well, so that's my first question. Did any actor of his era in earnest, like, replicate the, hey, see? Or was it just media trying to replicate 1920s talk that, like, popularized that as, like, the way they talked?
It might have just been that they actually talked like that.
Okay.
I don't even know.
Well, because I watched a couple James Cagney films in preparation for this. I watched Public Enemies, so like, you know, really early one, and then I watched what's the one of him on a boat with James Fonda or Henry Fonda?
Oh, here. It was called. We watched it.
Yeah.
Let me pull up his IMDb while we do this.
Well, that one, the one where they're on the boat, like it's like many years later, like this is in color and shit and stuff, and he's still doing the "it's my boat, see?"
Yeah, see?
And then Henry Fonda's talking normally. So like, I'm wondering if like, did everyone like of the 20s pick up that like cadence, or was it just media years later trying to make fun of spoof or like replicate the talk, and because he was so popular, it just kind of became, it was like everyone used to talk like that, when in actuality it was just James Cagney.
Yeah.
Did you know the answer to this?
No, man, it's the chicken or the egg.
I would bet that it's the fact that they were trying to do a little bit of making fun of him, because he was in like Yankee Doodle Dandy. You know, like that was an iconic piece. Like, so for him at the culture in that time, he's got to be like a big celebrity, like one of the biggest.
Right.
I'm sorry, was Yankee Doodle Dandy a film ever?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
For real?
Indeed, it was.
It wasn't just like a weird old song from the Revolutionary days or whatever?
Man. Yeah,
No. It was a song first, and then they made it into a movie and musical.
Can you
musical movie in 1942?
Yeah.
Can you imagine doing that today? Like, imagine like someone's like, "We're gonna make Drake's God's Plan into a movie." Like, the fuck do you mean you're gonna make that into a movie?
That'd be awesome.
Like, what the fuck does that mean?
It would just be Drake having a bunch of underage girls on a yacht.
Yo, those are unconfirmed.
Starring Millie Bobby Brown
Allegedly.
from Stranger Things.
This is purely speculation. There's been no allegations. I will not have Drake slander on this podcast.
This is a no Drake hate zone here.
Yeah. Hey, look, he shares my name. Imagine if Drake goes down for some scummy shit, and then like I'm actually named that. Like that's gonna, like, I hurt by proxy, right? So I have to believe for my own franchisability that Drake is on the up and up.
I thought you were gonna
Started from
say.
the bottom.
I thought you were gonna say, "What if Drake goes down for some shady shit I did?" And then
Drake sets him up.
Hey, look, I ain't doing no shady
It
shit.
wasn't me.
okay?
See, it wasn't me. See, we're doing
wasn't me,
James
see?
Cagney right here. Drake is James Cagney. That's all there is to it.
Wasn't me. See.
What do you mean? See, actually, I'll get into it. James Cagney, who is considered by Orson Welles to be the greatest actor who ever appeared in front of camera.
Whoa.
So I'm going to do a two-parter here. In the first part, I'm just going to tell you guys about him being born and his life. And then the second part would be more about his career, about his film career. I will get into him starting out in film here, but this is just going to be a lot about him first of all, if that's cool with y'all.
Absolutely. I do. Wait, hold on a second. So Orson Welles, it's important to remember Orson Welles died in 1985. So anyone who's been acting since 1985, Orson Welles had no reference on.
No, so this is the funny thing, Deb. So Drake thinks that James Cagney was like a bad actor. And for one, I disagree. Number one, I disagree. Did you see him in the end of Public Enemy when he fucking fell over dead? There's another clip that I'm going to have to put in here somewhere.
I don't want to die, oh please. I don't want to die, oh please. Oh, don't make me burn.
I think he was a great actor, but also, talkies were so new. This was like TikTok.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like-
so I want to defend that point really quick. So, I think he is not a great actor by today's standards.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, like
You don't think?
he was
yeah,
one of the
see, could fly today.
No, absolutely not. I mean, he was a pioneer of his industry, right? And so, like, it's you would expect that by now someone should be better at acting than James Cagney, right? Like most
Yeah.
people should.
For
because
sure. I
He
hear
was
you.
the first one doing it like 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying he wasn't good for his day.
Yeah.
But I do think that the performance has not aged quite as well as like maybe some other stuff that was like a little newer. Like I think like the Henry Fonda stuff. Like by then we had gotten it so figured out. Like I think Henry
Right,
Fonda's
like
great.
Humphrey Bogart.
Also, I've only seen 2 James Cagney films, so I'm
Right.
judging him off of two films. I will. I'm innocent. Well, I mean, I like the movies, but I guess I got notes. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I also before we jump into like his backstory, I kind of wanted to elaborate on one thing because some people, first-time listeners, and everyone's a first-time listener because it's the first episode. So first-time listeners are probably like, well, I thought this was the history of film, not the history of James Cagney.
Yeah.
Yes. So what we're kind of trying to do is we're trying to take an element of film history and kind of tell that story through a actor or a person that's like emblematic of that thing.
Yeah.
And so James Cagney's like real claim to fame is he's like the first real movie star.
Yeah, I think James Cagney is absolutely, when it comes to talkies, when it comes to not silent film, but talking films, James Cagney, in my opinion, I mean, not even just in my opinion, he is one of the very first movie stars to come out of film that had full sound,
Yeah.
And it was, what's interesting to me, James Cagney movies, one of the reasons why I want to make this show is because we all have, I think a lot of people have the wrong conception of, or a misconception of like what film was like back then. I mean, these black and whites were good. These black and white films back in the day were so well written, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
I showed Drake one of these films, and Dev, I'm sure you've probably run across it while we're doing research for this, but it was called The Great Guy. It's just called Great Guy. It was 1936. James Cagney plays an officer for the Weights and Balances Bureau for the city. So he would literally just go around to like markets and find people putting lead rods and chickens to like weigh more and stuff like that. And it was just, I don't know, it was... But the shots and the way the camera moves and the writing and the acting and the dialogue, they were already making film, I think you can go back and watch a black and white and get just as much, if not more, from it than modern day film. And honestly, we were making movies like we've been making since the beginning, although it was way different because in the second episode I'll get into it, but they were like, there was at one point in James Cagney's life, he was on set of Warner Brothers, and there was a shot where a guy's shooting at him with a Thompson submachine gun. So they actually shot a Thompson submachine gun like 5 feet away from him, they had this like sharpshooter Thompson
Jesus.
submachine gun guy. And yeah, I'll get into the whole story,
Whoa,
but
crazy.
film was wild back then.
Yeah. A lot less regulations.
This
Yeah.
this is what I was going to touch on when Drake, you made your harsh criticism of Mr. James Cagney. I'm just kidding.
Right?
I was being
Coming at my
over dramatic myself. Look, in the light of the acting aspect, there was theatrical acting since the Greeks. There was
Right.
good acting. There's no excuse for a bad actor being a bad actor. You should be able. There's the training is out there, the experience is out there for hundreds of years. So I don't think that was the issue, but the medium in which the performance was occurring was the problem. Like the art form was so young. There wasn't films had not
exactly. It
been
was so
around.
new.
So we stand on the shoulders of giants. So of course now we're gonna have a lot better actors because they're gonna have more time and more bodies of work to have
Right.
examined.
There's
in
been
the
millions of
past.
people before
Whereas
them, yeah.
like James said, like how much acting with sound was there before him in that era.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
It was vaudeville.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
Silent film.
And
And
you
I mean,
gotta
that's
do
the thing,
different
too.
stuff with different techniques of how you're conveying story and shit. Obviously, with silent.
Oh,
versus
absolutely.
And I think it was good. I really do think he was a good actor. There's been some scenes that I've watched of his where I thought he was great. I really do.
Yeah, and I mean that's all I was trying to say. That like, yes, acting has been around for thousands of years, but film acting is way different than theater acting. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
if you're
Oh,
taking
yes.
a lot of like theater
Of course.
acting into film, like it's going to be like an awkward transition sometimes. So
For sure.
Well, I
Um,
mean, it works only in certain circumstances. Generally in musicals, when you do a movie musical.
Mm-hmm.
So, like Yankee Doodle Dandy was probably the reason that worked to audiences and was so popular is because he was probably doing that over the top, very like Broadway esque, reach the back of the house, over exaggerate everything, and make it a fucking caricature because that's just how stage shows are done. But then
Well,
you
and that's
get some of the actors you mentioned after that came in like Fonda and were like stoic and like really like
Right.
it utilized the space and the silence of film to like
Humphrey Bogart,
enhance.
man.
Yeah.
I watched Casablanca last night, and Humphrey Bogart. He was an objectively good actor. Like that man was so good.
I love Casablanca.
Yeah, we'll
I love
absolutely do a
Casablanca.
whole episode on Casablanca and Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah, the history of Casablanca is actually really interesting because it's
Yeah.
like the way that movie ended was kind of up in the air for a while.
Yeah, well, they filmed it during the war with actual refugees
Wow.
from France.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, there were. We'll
I can't.
save it.
We'll save it. I can't wait for that one.
Let's save it.
I really want you to get into like your actual like you did so much work to write these notes and like
Yeah.
chronicle his life. But I just realized like we never really actually introduced ourselves because this is the first episode of kind of the
That's
film
true.
history reboot.
Yeah.
So James, you're the host. Who are you?
Yeah, so those of you who used to listen to me and Dev do this back in the day, I am either Jimmy DeLoy or James Scott. I haven't decided yet, but probably, it used to be like, this is film history with Jimmy DeLoy and Dev. Go ahead.
I'm either Devi Dev, Sailor Dev, Young Dev Thug.
Sailor Dev. That was what it was. It was
Dev
Jimmy
Thug.
DeLoy and Sailor Dev.
Sailor Dev.
Yeah.
That's
Because
so
we're
funny,
just
yeah.
using whatever names. But yeah, I'm fine with whatever. But anyways, Devin Mueller, guys. Radio show host, producer, writer, former actor. I don't know. Social media app creator and founder. Now,
Hell yeah.
recently, 2020
Yes.
Survivor.
Cool.
2020 Survivor.
I am Drake Cummings' professional friend. So no, yeah, I linked up with these guys. Background in like video games, of all things actually. But passionately interested in film.
Yeah.
I've been a film producer out here for to a capacity. Of some sort.
We're
for
all
a little
killer
bit.
film producers.
Yeah.
We're all like, the types of dudes who like.
Yeah.
Who
Kill
say
producers.
who
We're
say
just-
dudes and
Yeah. We were
In our
dudes,
time.
But we're not
dudes.
Harvey Weinstein type. Don't
No,
worry. We're not like
never.
Harvey Weinstein.
I would never do that.
No. Even
Um,
though I think Dev's related to him, right? No, I'm just kidding.
I write a little bit and stuff and act sometimes, but yeah, producing's where the money comes from. And I just as a little context, James, you are damn near close to like a film historian. Like you've seen movies from like all the decades and stuff.
Yeah.
Dev, what? I mean, you're a movie aficionado as well, from what I
Yeah, I
understand.
mean, I
about
grew
you.
up performing. I was in From
Yeah.
the Earth to the Moon with Tom Hanks. It was a miniseries that was on HBO when I was a kid. I was in Les Mis on Broadway and shit. So like,
Yeah, I was about to say, Dev was on fucking Broadway.
Dude, that's
interested in all aspects of performing arts forever. I grew up in a dance studio, so I got like a very wide range background because I couldn't play sports as a kid. My aunt owned a dance studio that my mom worked at, so it was between film and theater that I spent all of my childhood and adulthood now too. I never grew up.
I grew
I'm
up
still a
dancing.
fucking child.
I grew up dancing in my uncle's basement.
Absolutely.
That's hilarious.
And then I'm here.
Don't
I'm
know
here
if
to
it's
bring
Spotify friendly, but we'll go for it.
I'm here to bring the Gen Z perspective here. I started watching movies in like the fucking early 2000s, and I really fan of movies like from the black and white era. But like maybe you guys will change my mind on this. I hate movies from the 80s for the most part. Movies from the 80s like
was
really
so good.
Yeah, movies from the 80s I got like an issue if they're just too cheesy for me. But I'm a big fan of like old movies and a big fan of like new movies and stuff. But I'm like in the camp that I think like art just progressively gets better.
Yeah.
And so I think like movies made in the last 10 years are better than movies made from any other era. People will fight me on this, but we'll see as we go, you know.
No,
I'm down to expose myself to new films.
I
as
know what
we're
you mean. I mean, the
going through
80s
this.
were interesting because it is like, how did we go from such like crisp HD looking like 35 millimeter films to like the 80s where shit looks like they rubbed Vaseline on the lens? That was interesting. There's some 80s ones that are good though. The
Too
80s were
much,
just a lot of cocaine.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's too much cocaine in the line budget.
Yeah. They were all sneezing on the lens.
So I mean, here's my big differential. So like for example, I think Terminator 1 is a terrible fucking movie. But Terminator 2 is one of my favorite movies of all times, and that's the difference between the 80s and 90s to me. T1 versus T2 is the difference between the 80s and 90s to me.
See, 90s to me is where it's just not.
Got too
Well,
aggressive.
I don't know, man.
Here's a question for you then. Which do you think is a better movie, Jaws or Jurassic Park?
Jurassic Park, dude. Absolutely.
Jaws.
Oh my God, Jaws in a second, in a fucking
Yeah. Dude, when he
millisecond.
chomps down on Quint, it's still to this day one of the most disturbing, terrifying scenes in film history to me ever.
Well, these will all be future episodes.
Yeah.
But for the time being, take us away on Jamie C.
So, New York, 1899. James Francis Cagney was born on the Lower East Side of Manhattan to Carol and James Francis Cagney Sr., who was a bartender and amateur boxer. He's listed on his son's birth certificate as a telegraphist, though, which is a very, 1899 job.
Telegraphist,
sent
dude.
telegraphs.
Man.
Yeah.
He was like, man, these phone companies are coming for my job.
He's just, sexting on a telegraph. He's like, yeah, baby, how high are your stockings, you know? Cagney was of Norwegian and Irish descent. He stood at 5'4", had flaming red hair and blue eyes, which a lot of people don't know because it was all black and white.
Right. Was 5'4" short even for then?
That actually no. Humphrey Bogart was about 5'5".
Really?
Yeah, man. Humphrey Bogart. That movie that in Casablanca, there's another actor. It was Peter Lorre. He was super short. Anyway, I'm gonna keep going.
Is he Hugh Laurie's great grandfather?
Yeah. Maybe.
Peter Lorre is
House.
It's the Schiffer robe.
The Schiffer. Cagney's biographers disagree on the exact location of his birth, which to me is so fucking cool because that's only something that could have happened back in those days. Nowadays, we know where you're born, Dev. We know exactly where you were born, especially with that the microchips being put into you by the COVID-19 vaccine. Anyway, he was the second of 7 kids, 2 of whom died upon birth.
Now we're definitely not going to sell the show.
Wait, 2 of who died of what?
Yeah, he was the second of 7 kids, 2 of whom died at birth.
Oh, died at birth.
Yeah,
okay.
so he
I
was-
thought you said died of lumber. I was like, did the fucking trees fall on him?
Timber, they were lumberjacks. They died. I mean, hey, you had to get a job early back then,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, you're 13, you don't have a job, you ain't gonna make it in this life.
But yeah, one day it was just him and his big brother Henry, who was 2 years older than him, and then suddenly there's 3 more kids, and 2 die. It was a very early 1900s Manhattan type of home. His family was extremely poor, and he was born pretty sickly, so his mother was said to have been worried he wouldn't even make it to his baptism, which would not be good, because if you die as a baby before your baptism, you are now Satan's baby. That's a proven fact.
It's like Monopoly, you go straight to hell.
Yeah, you go, do not collect $200.
Do not pass go.
And go to hell. His family moved twice while he was young, first to East 79th Street and then to East 96th Street. He was confirmed at St. Francis de Sales Roman Catholic Church in Manhattan, the very same church that he would have his funeral in 1986. So when he died, he had his funeral in the same church he was born in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. He was born in a church, not a hospital.
No, he was confirmed in the church. His mother was worried that he was going to fucking die as a baby.
Right, okay.
So she's running down the street with this baby in her arms like, this kid's about to die. And then she...
Dunk him with water.
Yeah, she like kicks open the doors to the church and she's like, do your water thing.
Drown
preacher.
him.
Drown this baby in the
Drown him,
holy
he's about to
water.
die.
He's about to die. No, so she got him confirmed at that church, and he had his funeral at the very same church, and they were still spraying that holy water on him, even at his funeral. You know,
you gotta dunk the corpse.
You gotta dunk the corpse. You never want to run to a Catholic church and be like, "I've got a baby for you."
Can I leave him for a couple hours?
That's the fire station next door, man. So I was wondering something. Dev, you'll love this. So, James Cagney, right? He dies in 1986. So he had to have known about Motley Crue. Right? What do you think, Dev? Oh, Dev's doing stuff.
No, I'm good. I think that's a great idea.
We might have to...
Wait.
We might have to roll this back a little bit.
I think that's a great idea. It's not an answer to the question, though.
I know. I was distracted by fixing my computer really quick. My apologies.
Dev thinks it's a great idea for James Cagney to see Motley Crue, and I agree with him.
I think he was not into him. I think he was like, these music went down the drain when it went all electric, see?
Yeah, see?
Whatever happened to good old piano?
Which is funny because he was like that when he started doing movies. They were all like, look at this actor talking in this movies. What a hack. You know, we do silent films around these parts, damn it. He was the Motley Crue of his time.
Talking is for the uncivilized. That's always how it goes, though. The pioneers didn't get mad when other shit is like new and pioneering.
Right. Damn right. You gotta hate on the new stuff.
Gotta hate it.
Yep. So growing up, Cagney's Irish boxer bartender father was, surprise, surprise, a huge drunk.
The Irish boxer? Yeah.
You don't say.
You don't say. The early 1900s Irish boxer dad he liked to have a nip or two here and there. And so he would often rage and, throw shit at his kids and throw his kids out of windows. No, I don't know. I don't know if he actually threw them out of a window. Maybe, though. But it didn't make it easier on little Jimmy that he was very passionate about tap dancing.
Hold on. Can you imagine that household where you're like your drunk Irish boxing father comes home
I want to tap dance, Daddy.
Yeah, and you're like, I want to tap dance.
There'll be no tap dancing in here, boy.
Hey.
I can't imagine why he might have gotten hit. I'm just saying. I don't know.
Hey, there'll be no tap dancing around here, little buddy.
I don't know if that's Scottish or Irish.
You're just gonna go break rocks in the cave. You're gonna go break you're gonna go mine for the rocks like your daddy.
Look. There ain't no self-respecting drunk that would put on them tap shoes, boy. You gotta choose. Is you gonna be a drunk like your father, or you gonna be a tap dancer?
Maybe he learned how to tap dance to like dodge his dad's like flying shit that he's throwing around the house,
And then his dad just puts on clogs and river dances on top of the bar.
Again, super not Irish. But
wait, river dance is not Irish? Is that Scottish?
Well, the clogs are not Irish, are they?
Dutch.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know, man. I'm American. I don't know other cultures.
This film history. This ain't geography
my
history.
dad's great-grandfather came from Ireland, so I'm like legally allowed to talk shit.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm Irish too.
Sure.
I'm talking
Plus,
shit,
they're white people.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this, there's no offense being done here. Only good fun from descended Irish.
This is a comedy podcast. This isn't Dan Carlin, Hardcore History, all right?
Who's Dan Carlin?
He's just Hardcore History. It's very
Oh
good.
my god.
What's hardcore history?
It is hardcore.
One of the
porn
best
history.
podcasts out there.
One of the best podcasts in the world. Yeah,
Amazing.
This episode is brought to you by Hardcore History.
Yeah, no, Hardcore History is like our podcast, except for very serious.
All right. Well, he's not paying us. So, like, what else can you tell us about James Cagney?
Okay, so James Cagney became known around the neighborhood for his tap dancing. And
for real?
yeah, for real. He became like a locally famous little tap dancer, and so much to the point. So he would tap dance on slanted cellar doors around the neighborhood, and he became known as Cellar Door Cagney.
Wait, really?
Cellar Door Cagney.
That's
Tap
hilarious.
dancing, making his father very disappointed.
You know what?
apparently.
That's a good Instagram handle. If
Yeah.
Instagram was around at the time, Cellar Door Cagney.
Cellar Door Cagney.
That would trend.
Maybe that should be my name on this podcast.
Cellar
Cellar Door. This is Film History, the history of film, brought to you by Cellar Door Cagney, Sailor Dev, and what's your name, Drake? What's your
Just Drake.
just Drake? Just Drake. But don't be mistaken, Dev. Old Cagney could beat ass too. All right. He was quite the street fighter.
Oh wait, for real?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
He was. He was 5'4" with red hair and like an abusive dad. I imagine he, I imagine he learned how to fight pretty quick. But so much so, he became an amateur boxer and even the runner-up for the New York State lightweight title. And he had a thing. I'm going to bring it up a little bit later, but James Cagney could watch someone's movement, be it a dance or whatever he was watching, he could memorize it to the point to where he could reenact it really well.
After seeing it one time?
Yeah, after seeing it one time, he had like a
Whoa.
weird like photographic memory. It was very interesting.
Wow.
And he would watch a boxer when he was a kid named Patty McFarlane. Patty McFarlane, I'm sure his dad loved him. And he watched him so much that he memorized all of Patty McFarlane's combos and his footwork. And he basically was like this little Patty McFarlane in the ring. So he was a really good boxer, which I guess you have to be because if you're tap dancing in the early 1900s, you probably got to know how to beat ass. You know what I mean?
He'll throw hands with them feet.
Yeah,
Can
his
you
coach
imagine
wanted.
him going to perform with just like a shiner and a bottle of whiskey?
Yeah. Oh, that absolutely happened. He was dancing on like a cellar door with like black eyes and. His dad's across the street like, you'll never be nothing, kid.
Well, it's a good thing that life was black and white back then, so they couldn't see the bruises as well. That's how I see history. Like, if any time I hear a story from the 1900s, I can't imagine it in HD and I can't imagine it in color. So I feel like people's eyes worked like television. So everyone
Absolutely.
just saw things in SD 4:3 black and white.
Oh,
That's-
yeah. When he was dancing on those cellar doors, it was all in black and white.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah,
around saw it. Yeah.
lots of things were in black and white, like water fountains, bathrooms.
Oh, no.
Right.
It's probably not the best of lens to look through.
This is the
Oh,
funniest
no.
part about this is one of the interesting parts about film history is like Dev and I were doing those first episodes back in the day, and it does. I will just warn everyone listening. Surprise, surprise! This was a very racist time.
It's like every place we did research, we found something that was like deplorable and offensive and ridiculous.
We did a fucking episode on the Hollywood sign, and it turns out that the Hollywood sign was originally erected as Hollywood land for an all-whites neighborhood that they were building in Beverly Hills. True
That is
fucking
both
story.
living in
So-
Hollywood now. That is a both depressing history fact and very ironic.
Yeah.
Considering
yeah.
like Hollywood's like one of the most diverse and
Yeah.
interesting, culturally interesting like streets I've ever lived on.
Yeah, but
Always.
Beverly Hills
Yeah.
isn't.
I don't live in Beverly Hills. I live in Hollywood.
I know, they just moved the
Hollywood.
neighborhood. They kept heading towards the water. So the Palisades are the right there.
So
So,
Cagney's
yeah.
Cagney's coaches wanted to book him a pro fight. They wanted him to be a boxer, but like you do in the 1910s, he was also kind of messing around playing semi-pro baseball at the time.
This ball is crushed.
What the fuck?
Yep, like you do. And he really wanted to go to the major leagues instead. And so he quit boxing to pursue baseball. Yeah, things back in those days, you just kind of did stuff, and you could just do stuff.
Wait, and so like, how do you make his money though? Is he just making money like doing boxing matches and baseball games?
Yep, boxing matches and baseball games are probably getting tips as old cellar door Cagney.
Wow.
Don't forget, he's probably making quite a mint off of those cellar door dances that he was doing.
Yeah, this is impressive.
Definitely not getting money from his dad. I don't imagine his dad gave him. Yeah, so he pursued baseball instead of getting his brains pounded out by very early 1900s leather gloves. Cagney went to Stuyvesant High School in New York, which was a primarily Jewish school, so he learned Yiddish, because he said everybody knew Yiddish at school. He wanted to learn Yiddish. His older brother Harry graduated 2 years before him, and Harry went on to pursue an acting career in New York as soon as he graduated, while James was still in high school, and he found some success in vaudeville pretty much right off the bat. Just kind of like, these are those types of like brothers who were both talented. Whatever, man. James managed to survive his drunk dad long enough to graduate. That's in my notes. And was inducted into Columbia College in 1918. So he goes to Columbia College.
Dude, what? This sounds like Forrest Gump. It's just like there's just this man who's just good at everything.
This is everyone that we were going to do film history on.
They're just all freaks of nature.
They're just all freaks of nature who did crazy, crazy things. I remember, again, not to like hark back to old episodes, but Dev and I did one on Will Rogers.
Will Rogers was
wild, dude. Will Rogers was just like, maybe I'll go start a ranch in Guatemala, and then maybe I'll like come back and like take my road trips to New York City and do vaudeville and like get discovered by huge producers in New York. It was
So wait, I have a question though.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can get to this because Cagney joins vaudeville at some point, right?
yeah.
Okay, when we get to that part of the story, explain what vaudeville is.
Okay.
So
for sure. That's a good idea, actually. I will put that here in the notes.
Cool.
Put them in the notes. He's inducted into Columbia College in 1918. He chose art as his major, enrolled in the Student Army Training Corps, now known as the Reserve Officers Training Corps, or ROTC, and started taking German, which is interesting. I'm just saying. He doesn't know how ironic it is yet that he's learning German and Yiddish at the same time. His college career was cut short after one semester when the 1918 flu pandemic struck and killed his father.
Whoa. What's a pandemic like?
Yeah, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, can you imagine if this happened again? Like a pandemic strikes the Earth?
I couldn't. I don't think we would handle it well.
No, I don't think so either.
I don't think any government would be very good.
But we would probably get stimulus checks like every month.
Well,
nah.
Wasn't his dad...
think, though.
Wasn't his dad just drunk all the time getting punched in the head?
Yeah,
I don't know
basically.
if that's good for your health in a pandemic.
Yeah, who knows if he died from the Spanish flu or just like, died from being who he was.
A liver failure concussion?
Liver failure. He had a concussion on his liver. But yeah, thank God nothing like that ever happened again. No more pandemics.
Yeah, couldn't imagine.
So old Cagney goes home after burying his father. Cagney got to work to support his family. He held a lot of odd jobs that were extremely early 1900s type of jobs. He worked as a junior architect, a copy boy for the New York Sun, which was, he would literally cut excerpts from pages of the newspaper and paste them onto like where they were going to go, and they would send it through the final print and stuff. That was his job. He worked as a bellhop, a draftsman, which is a guy who drafts designs for architects, and as a bookkeeper for the New York City Public Library. And he had other jobs too. He worked at like restaurants. He usually would have like 2 or 3 jobs at a time every day to go to,
Wait, no, so question, how old is he at this time, do you think?
At this time, it was 1918. He was born in 1899, so he was 37. Is that the right math?
Wait, Dev keeps
That's Mississippi public school math. He was 80.
Dev, do you know how old he was?
I didn't hear the
He's
numbers,
19.
so I'd have to go.
So he's born in 18. He was born in 18. Oh my God, we can't put this in.
What
there.
is the date?
He was born in 1899 and is now 1918.
He's 17.
This whole episode is just a sound test.
The fuck?
Wait, well, how is he in college at 17?
Oh, because it was, 1900. It was like, I mean, you could go to college whenever you wanted to. As a matter of fact, like, as soon as you're born, they're like, are you going to go or not?
Nah, bro. That's because grade school ended earlier.
Yeah, exactly. If you were still alive after grade school, you could go straight to college. That was the rule. Because
How many
They were
grades
like-
there used to be?
there was only as long as you could live. That was it.
Wait, wasn't there always 12 years?
No way, man.
No.
You can't last that long. Not back in those days. You're going to die. 12 years back in those days.
Public education ends in 5th grade?
Yeah, it is. It's time to go to work. Time to get to work, boy.
Wait, so what about his mother?
What about his mother?
Is she around ever?
Yeah, she's around. She's just like dodging shit that his dad just throwing at her.
Well,
and
but
stuff.
I mean, women didn't work at this time, did they?
Yeah, she's just like, no.
his-
Women were not allowed to work.
His mom is her dad's corner.
Yeah, his mom's just like at the house taking care of the kids and like dodging beer bottles that are smashing against the wall until his ass dies of the flu. I'm sure she was so sad about that. So after burying the best father ever known to man, Cagney got to work to support the family, got all those jobs. Oh, I imagine James Cagney as a bellhop too, because he was a very angry man. So like, I just imagine like if you didn't tip him enough, he would just like punch you in the face. Because by the way, that is one thing we're gonna get into. James Cagney loved punching people in the face,
real?
particularly in movies when it was supposed to be a fake punch. A lot of times you would get knocked out. A lot of times you get knocked out by old James
ex-boxer,
Cagney.
dude.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Wow.
I mean,
It's
hey
like
man,
I'm method before method existed.
Exactly. My method is to knock you out in this scene. That is the method.
Jesus. So you said he was a very angry person. Was he not pleasant to be around?
I mean, in his interviews, he seems kind of like a sweet, thoughtful guy, but apparently he had a short fuse.
Okay.
So I bet he was one of those dudes who was cool until he wasn't.
Okay.
You know?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of those actors back in those days were. I don't imagine Humphrey Bogart was like always the funnest dude to be around. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah.
And when he grew up dodging beer bottles, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Brando was notorious for that. There was a
Yeah,
few.
Brando was he was terrible.
Wow. Interesting. Good to know nothing's ever changed.
Yeah. But Cagney looked back on all these jobs fondly. He was quoted saying, "It was good for me. I feel sorry for the kid who has it too cushy of a time and suddenly has to come face to face with the realities of life without any mama or papa to do his thinking for him." So Cagney really, he had that like hard-working spirit. He had 3 jobs at a time, and he was still dancing on cellar doors and shit. So he was out there doing his thing.
Also, important to remember, there was a lot less to do back then.
Yeah.
He didn't have Netflix.
No, he did
Like-
not have Netflix yet.
If he wasn't working 3 jobs a day on cellar doors, he would just be laying in his very uncomfortable
Yeah.
bed, being like, "There's nothing to do." See?
Yeah,
Nah,
exactly.
He'd be getting bottles thrown at him from his fucking dad.
He's tap dancing away from him.
He's like, I gotta get the hell out of the house.
He's like, "Dad, throw another one at me. I got to practice like my left hook." Like.
You just punching bottles out of the
Yeah,
air.
yeah. Bow, bow, bow. That was how they used to do it. He's
Amazing.
like, "You'll never be nothing, kid." That was, I don't know what accent that was. So, while holding down the job at the New York City Public Library, one of the regulars who would come to the library was a woman named Florence James, a legendary acting coach and stage director in New York. And when she'd come around, she basically would tell Cagney, his brother Harry at this time is already acting. He's already out there in vaudeville. And Florence James would come in and basically say, like, "Why don't you act like your brother? You know, like you got the look, you got the spark. You're a very personable guy. you should get on stage. You should start acting. But he was a dancer. Also, his real passion at the time was farming. So much to the point to where, he wanted to be a farmer. That was his whole goal in life, was to go have a farm somewhere and, milk some cows and invite his cousin over or whatever.
This man is an enigma. His
an
dream
enigma.
in life was to have an incredibly hard and toilsome life. His entire life. He was like, all I want, see, is to wake up every morning at the crack of dawn, do backbreaking labor, and never get any rest.
So much to the point to where he attended a soil conservation lecture in New York, and he was looking for plots of land where he could, lay some seed, baby.
Lay some seed.
Grow his corn.
I'm not saying that farmers aren't very essential to civilization. I'm saying I didn't know anyone who had a shot at acting was ever just I wish I had a more physical job.
Yeah, Steven Spielberg comes into your job and he's like, you should act, and it's like, no, man, I want to grow corn.
I like construction, actually.
I love.
My back being sore is my favorite part of it.
There's plenty of people that do side work. Keanu Reeves builds fucking motorcycles.
Oh, for sure.
But none of these hurt your lower back after a couple years of doing them. You know what I'm saying?
I'm pretty sure Keanu's not lifting pipes.
Yeah, exactly.
He's
fun
lifting
hobbies.
one pipe.
I'm saying something like farming is such hard work. It's just I applaud anyone who can do that for their entire life.
I've heard Keanu Reeves is one of the best pipe layers in the world. I'm just saying.
For sure. To both of those.
So Florence James, actually, and her husband Burton, Dev, you probably know about these. They went on to start Playhouse Theater. They started the first. Yeah, they started the first one in Seattle, and it would eventually become the Playhouse Theater chain. It's a chain of acting schools, Drake. It's called Playhouse.
Okay.
I once went to Playhouse West. And that's where I audited the class in Beverly Hills where Jeff Goldblum was teaching. Oh. And he gave me a headache because he was just basically telling me to tell my scene partner what color their shirt was over and over and over again.
Jeff Goldblum seems like he'd be a frustrating acting coach.
Yeah, he was.
Because he kind of has a how in movies and TVs and stuff the acting coaches are all eccentric old gypsy ladies.
Yeah,
he kind of has that vibe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's very man. Marlon Brando had a cool acting school at one point. That sounded like it was a lot of fun to go to. But yeah, Dev, have you ever had any experience with these Playhouse theater acting schools?
I've audited class at the Playhouse over in Beverly Hills.
It's a cool place, very cool. But she and her husband Florence and Burton James are the ones who started it. She was the one who was going in the library telling Cagney that he needed to start acting. He did finally make a small break into the film industry. He was visiting his aunt in Brooklyn, and his aunt lived across the street from Vitagraph Studios.
What is that?
So it's one of the most prolific studios in the world at the time. It was a giant studio, and the way it started sort of loops back around some information in an older episode that we did about Thomas Edison patenting the film projector in 1896.
Edison was a bitch, yo.
Yeah. Man, that was some interesting stuff. We'll definitely release those old episodes whenever we're not recording.
Yeah, it'll be special episodes that we put out over the holidays and stuff, and we can't get together to film new ones.
Yeah, Thomas Edison patented the film projector in 1896. He was basically, the first one to do that. Englishman J. Stuart Blackton was working as a journalist for the New York Evening World, and he was sent to interview Edison about his new invention. And by the time he wrapped up the interview with Edison, he bought a bunch of projectors and reels of film from Edison. And so by 1897, he had set up a shop on a rooftop on Nassau Street in Manhattan, where he started Vitagraph Studios as a direct competition with Edison, which was pretty ballsy to go up against Edison in those days. I mean, he was killing people. Edison was not a nice man.
I actually know a lot about that history. I'd be down to do a more in-depth episode on the whole Edison thing, and kind of Edison indirectly helped start Hollywood because of his antics.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, he did. He was a crazy man. He was definitely a crazy man. So they made the very first stop motion film. It was called Humpty Dumpty Circus.
Whoa. That early?
Yeah, that early.
Wow.
They made the very first one. They got their claim to fame when they sent Vitagraph cameramen to roll footage on the Spanish-American War in 1898. That was like how they, became known. The short films they were making in the war were being distributed around the U.S. as the very first propaganda films. And they were also the first studio to film staged events and pass them off as propaganda.
Interesting.
Yeah. That you got to Google this. They were making these videos. One of them, there's a video out there called "The War Films Made with Toys," and it was a bunch of films that Blackton and his business partner Albert Smith made with models and miniatures, and they were passing them off as footage from Cuba and shit. Yeah, apparently.
What?
Yeah, apparently they just didn't have enough footage, or their footage was, they were just coming back with not enough, and so they were putting like model boats and bathtubs and stuff and filming whole war scenes, and they would pass it off as like Vitagraph Studios.
Oh, well, I mean that's kind of what they did for a long time. Like, I mean, like a lot of action scenes are done on miniatures and stuff,
Yeah.
and like all Star Wars space scenes and even like Interstellar and
sure.
stuff. Like use miniatures. That's cool. So that was like the first kind of use of like miniatures.
Yeah, but they were
Yeah.
passing it off as real footage for
Okay.
war propaganda.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
And,
Interesting.
anyways, they did a shit ton of silent films after that, and they got bought by Warner Brothers in the 30s and are credited with creating some of the very first movie stars ever, including Florence Turner, known as the Vitagraph Girl. Mm-hmm. She was one of the first movie stars. It was cool, though. We did a whole thing about how they used to do it, where they'd play the silent film in the theater, and the studio would send over music for the band or the piano player or the organ player or whoever it was. They'd send over music to play along with the film.
You have to play live.
Yeah, and that was how they did it.
Oh, very cool.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
So there's
Very
actually fun fact, and you guys should check this out in LA. The Nutter Cutter Museum is in the Valley, like between the Valley and Santa Clarita, and it's an old car museum of this guy who is a billionaire who started a makeup line, and he has all like 2 stories of the world's most extensive historical car collection. But in there is called the Wurlitzer organ. He has a piano organ.
The Wurlitzer.
And it's one of like 4 or 5 in the world that's left. And a German Wurlitzer is a different organ built into a room, also with sound effects. So they would play a movie and then have people playing this Wurlitzer organ, but not only with like musical instruments and percussion, they'll have like a sound effect for like a train horn, like behind a curtain, behind the screen. So it'll be a loud train horn will fucking blow while you're watching the movie. So like the sound effects and the score for the movie sounded more live than, the best surround sound that we have in theaters today. Because it was essentially a live band in live Foley happening at the same time as what you were watching with screen. Yeah, it's really
That's so
cool.
dope. Yeah, that's
You
so
should check
dope.
out. They do tours and they do like performances of the Wurlitzer, and you can still go
nice.
there once a month and watch a movie on
Well,
the
awesome.
Wurlitzer.
Probably not right now because of COVID, but
Yeah.
wait,
Right,
you said this
okay.
place,
American flu.
You said this place is called the Nut Cutter?
It's like the Netter Cutter or Nutter Cutter. It's the last name of the guy's family. It's the Netter Cutter Museum.
My name is David Nutcutter.
David Nutcutter.
It's off the. It should be like off of the 5 or something, headed north.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Dope.
I performed the first vasectomy. My name is David Nutcutter.
I'm starting to realize it probably wasn't a great idea to take shots before this podcast.
Yeah.
Remind me, is James Cagney in Vaudeville at this point?
Not yet.
Okay,
Not yet.
okay.
No, he's still working at a library, and he's like holding down a bunch of other regular ass jobs. But no. So now we've gotten to the point now where his aunt lives across the street in Brooklyn from Vitagraph Studios, and James Cagney goes and visits his aunt.
Good.
While Cagney was at his aunt's house, he caught word that his favorite comedic actor John Bunny was filming one of his hilarious short comedies at the studio. Cagney climbed the fence and snuck into the studio and watched them film from hiding spots around the set. And he made this a regular thing. He'd sneak on the lot and watch them film movies. And at some point, he got caught. And basically, people started to recognize him as, like, this weird kid who would sneak onto the studio a lot, and they would make him a PA and stuff. They would just say, like, at least if you're going to be here, make yourself useful, you know? Go
That's
run me
the
some...
moral of the story, kids. Crime and breaking and entering does pay.
So I feel like that's
Amen.
one of those things that would absolutely never work today.
No.
Like they would just arrest you.
And it used to work. I mean, all the way up until I have friends who were a little bit older in the industry, but even they as kids in like the 70s, 80s, and 90s would go sneak onto Warner Brothers lot. You know, you could do it back in the day.
Supposedly that's how like Spielberg like got his
Yeah.
start, because he would take tours of Universal and then he just got out and found an empty office and started working in it.
Yeah.
And then eventually they were just like, well, he already works here, I guess.
He's already here, I
And
guess.
no one knows if that story is true or not, but that's like the myth around his origin.
Yeah.
Which like absolutely impossible today. They would just arrest you.
Yeah, they would definitely just arrest you. You could not make it onto a studio lot these days. I used to try to hang out after doing background at like Warner Brothers when they were checking us all out. Sometimes I would successfully do it. Me and a few friends would like hang out afterwards
Yeah.
and just let everyone leave, and then we had like free reign of Warner Brothers. But
Yeah.
you'd always get caught by some late night security guard who
Yeah.
would tell you to get the fuck out.
Right, yeah. Oh no, when they were filming Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like in my front yard basically, I would try and just like walk around the set and see if there was like something I could just like find to do really quick and no one
Yeah.
would question it. They always question
They
it.
always questioned it. What are you doing here? So, around this time, his aforementioned actor brother Harry Cagney was performing in a show at the Lenox Hill Neighborhood House, a community center on the east side of Manhattan that offered adult education classes and other community things, including theater. The show Harry was performing in was a Chinese pantomime, a type of musical theater stage production designed for family entertainment. And Drake, I don't know much about pantomimes, but what I do know is that pantomime has a long theatrical history in Western culture, dating back to classical theater. It developed partly from the 16th century commedia dell'arte tradition of Italy and other European and British stage traditions, such as 17th century masque and music halls. An important part of the pantomime until the late 19th century was the harlequinade. The style was developed in England and is performed throughout the United Kingdom, Ireland, and to a lesser extent in other English-speaking countries, especially during the Christmas and New Year season. Modern pantomime includes songs, gags, slapsticks, comedy, and dancing. It employs gender-crossing actors and combines topical humor with a story more or less based on a well-known fairy tale, fable, or folk tale.
Wait, so question though, so pantomiming today is
Yeah.
like charades basically, right?
Yeah, or pantomiming now, we more know pantomiming is like when you're doing background and you just act like you're doing something.
Oh, yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Did that term derive from this?
Yeah, it
Okay,
was-
and in what way? Because what you described to me is nothing like what I know it as. So how did that derive into the one thing to the other?
We're going to talk about that on the episode of Film History, History of Film, Pantomime.
Okay.
I don't want to waste it here. Everybody's waiting for that episode.
Of course,
you
yeah,
know?
you gotta tease it out.
Yeah, we got to tease it out right now. Pantomime is a participatory form of theater in which the audience is expected to sing along with certain parts of the music and shout out phrases to the performers. Outside Britain, the word pantomime is often understood to mean miming, rather than the theatrical form described here.
Interesting. Okay.
But that's all the info I have on pantomime.
Okay.
I don't know anything else about it.
Well, the audience interaction part's interesting because that kind of reminds me of like Rocky Horror Picture Show and like the room
Yeah.
and stuff, where it's like there's a whole
Yeah.
performance from the audience that's expected along with the actual
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah. And now you're
so-
kind of, this is kind of, like you were saying about like explaining kind of, you know,
What vaudeville
vaudeville.
is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like this is vaudeville. Vaudeville was very much, I mean, I don't mean to compare it to like the circus, but
Okay.
the circus is very vaudevillian.
Okay.
You know, it was traveling shows, widely traveling shows, and you had your thing that you would do, and you were part of a cast that would travel the world, and you would do like a multi-talented show where the lady would come out and dance with a snake, and then you'd come out and James
Interesting.
Cagney would tap dance. And
Okay, fascinating.
Yeah.
So
It'd be
all
like
right,
a
actually,
cabaret mixed with a circus.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like, remember, so like in Red Dead Redemption 2, you could kind of go to these shows.
That was vaudeville.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, and
Okay,
that
cool.
is
Now I know
vaudeville.
exactly what you're talking about.
And vaudeville was unique geographically to the Pacific Northwest, is where it started in
Right.
Seattle, and it was actually like a stagecoach ring that did this traveling circuit, and then from that the popularity spread and grew to the Midwest, to Chicago, and then all the way east as like a style.
Yeah,
But it was
okay.
really like this like stagecoach show that would happen during the summer, where all these acts would travel from town to town, pioneer town, little outpost, and provide like the only form of entertainment.
Yeah,
Because,
it would be. You would literally be, if you were a vaudeville performer, you were literally going to mining camps and, like places that would hire you basically when people were just doing horrible work.
Just the most depressing
The
work
most
possible.
depressing work possible. You would go and like liven up their day, and you were right before like the working girls who would come in after you.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Horribly enough, oftentimes were exploited. Younger girls dancing for the entertainment of these hard coal mine working men.
Yeah.
History is
wasn't
unfortunate
the best
and
of
depressing.
situations. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, and
Yeah,
at
it
one
was,
point,
some aspects would say it's very similar to Hollywood now.
yeah, that's very true. Except for now in Hollywood, you get to kind of stay in one place usually. But
That's very true, and you don't have to
can-
raise wolves in winter and
You can do all your terrible, terrible things to people in one city instead of
yeah,
having to move around.
exactly. It all stays a small town out here, really.
It is.
and then you
It's
can
unexpected.
TikTok about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, at one point, I'll get into it later, but James Cagney and his wife both did vaudeville. They both toured with vaudeville shows, like as newlyweds, like separately. Like, they got married and basically separated and went and
Interesting.
did their own. But that was the way back in the day. You were a vaudeville performer, and that's all there is to it.
Interesting. So in some ways, TikTok is the vaudeville of today. 'cause
TikTok is fun.
everyone has their like little bit, and you scroll through to the next one. So it's like,
Oh,
imagine if
that's
vaudeville.
actually very accurate.
Yeah,
Ah.
it's disappointingly accurate.
So wait, so was vaudeville a company, or was it like the brand of entertainment? Like,
It was literally just the
It's like the style.
style
Okay.
of entertainment.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
It would like
Like-
Dev said, it was cabaret. like-
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So Harry's doing his pantomime show at the community theater, and guess who is the fucking director of the very show that he's doing? Frances James herself, who, the lady at the library who told James Cagney he should get into acting. Gotta love New York. So James very easily gets a job as one of the stagehands of this show. And on top of the job he was already holding down at Wanamaker's department store, doing God knows what, James Cagney stuff. Who knows what he did in all of his jobs. So as a stagehand, he watched so many rehearsals that he had that photographic memory of the performance, of everyone's moves, which came in handy when his brother Harry got sick one night and needed a replacement. So James came yelling from the side of the stage, "I'll do it." Not really. He's like, "I'll do it." I don't know how it went down exactly. That's how I'd like to think. He's like, "It's me."
All I can think of is that scene from Walk Hard where the guy can't play, and then Dewey Cox is like, "Well, I'll sing all the shows. I could probably do it."
Yeah.
And the guy's like, "Fuck it, we gotta try."
We gotta
And
try.
It works out perfectly.
That's exactly how it went. And he came out there. He danced most of everyone's number as like an audition. He knew everybody's moves. He didn't make any mistakes. And he's old cellar door Cagney, man. I mean, he went out there and killed it. Like he,
Old cellar door C.
old
I love
cellar.
that that's the nickname you came up with for him. Good old cellar door
Oh,
Cagney.
Cagney. No, that's what the kids in the neighborhood knew him as. He was old cellar door Cagney, baby.
Old CDC.
He knew exactly what he was doing. Old CDC. He was just waiting for his opportunity, and it came a knocking, just like you would knock on a cellar door. You know what I'm saying? One of James's coworkers at the department store came to see his act, and he tipped off Cagney about some auditions being held for a review called Every Sailor. And a review, Drake, is kind of it's actually a lot like what Dev said, where it's vaudeville meets cabaret. A review was often, it was like a very risque type of show.
Cool.
That would go on for, you don't bring your kids.
Cool.
Or you do. It was early 1900s, Stop throwing beer bottles at them for 1 second and bring them to a show, right? And see some women lift their skirts up and stuff.
Teach them the birds and the bees.
Yeah. Teach them the birds and the bees so they can have sex before they die at like 11 years old. We'll cut that part. Every sailor.
I think we should leave it.
No, we won't. No, we
in
won't.
light of everything. Yeah, why not?
I'm not cutting it. I don't see anything wrong with that joke.
So Cagney goes to this audition for the show. It was Every Sailor, a wartime play where servicemen, originally it was written where a bunch of active servicemen would dress as women and do a chorus line. It was like you would do it in war, they would the boys would put on a show where they put on dresses. It was hilarious.
Okay, so wait, was this out of like they didn't let women like act in as much in this time period, or they just thought it's funny if a man dresses like a woman?
It's funny if a man dresses as a woman, and also women were very much involved in all of this.
Okay,
but men dress as women was very funny to them, and one of the misconceptions that I mentioned earlier was this, where men were dressing as women on stage. James Cagney, a very tough guy actor, thought it was hilarious to dress as a woman on stage because it was very funny back then. These times that we're talking about are in some ways oddly way less stuffy and conservative than we are nowadays. Like the 1920s was everybody was doing cocaine and being promiscuous. And
Sure,
it was a party.
They were also doing blackface.
Yeah, that is very true. That is very true.
I was going to say, you were like, you mentioned that comment about women, people jumped on stage, pretend to be a woman because it's funny. And I'm like, well, it doesn't always work out like that.
No,
right,
for
yeah,
sure,
well,
for
so,
sure.
but I'm wondering, though, was it one of those things where it's just because cross-dressing was just way more accepted, or was it the fact that they found cross-dressing to be so absurd at the time that they were like, well, this is just comedy?
He basically said, I have a quote here. He said, he did not find it odd to play a woman, nor was he embarrassed. He later recalled how he was able to shed his own naturally shy persona when he stepped onto the stage. He said, "For there, I am not myself. I am not that fellow Jim Cagney at all. I certainly lost all consciousness of him when I put on skirts, wig, paint, powder, feathers, and spangles." So in his mind, when he would put on drag, it was like, well, there's no pressure here.
Cool.
I'm not James
Okay.
Cagney.
So it's just this is acting.
Susan.
Yeah.
It was
cellar door
total,
Cassie.
Yeah. Old cellar door Susie.
Yeah,
and,
I'm sure that's what J. Edgar Hoover would say, too, when he would put on his dress.
Cellar door Eddie.
Walk around his mom's heels.
Cellar door
man,
Hoover.
No judgment. Dress how you want to dress.
Damn right. And Armie Hammer did really good in that movie, and then he ate a bunch of women's toes or whatever he did.
Allegedly.
I'm pretty sure he had that woman's toes in his pocket when he did that
This episode
interview.
is brought to you by Traeger Grills. Perfect for you.
Girlfriend's toes. Perfectly cooked every time. So, James Cagney said it was a waste of time to audition for this because apparently he only knew one dance move, and it was the Peabody. That was the one he knew by heart. He could watch people do stuff on stage, and he could replicate it, fairly easily. But going up onto an audition cold, basically he's got one move that he knows how to break out, and that's the Peabody. But the Peabody was a very complicated dance. And actually, you guys can see me. I'm doing it right now, right?
I guess so.
Do you
Have you
want
seen the Peabody?
Should I pull up a clip of a Peabody?
Yeah, absolutely. Pull up the Peabody.
Yeah, I'll look this up. So
For all the audience listening right now, though, I'm doing a perfect one.
I'll describe it as I see it, I see it with my eyes.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, so this is the Peabody.
Yeah.
It pulls up a bunch of stuff from that animated movie, Mr. Peabody and Sherman.
Oh my God.
The Peabody dance.
Wrong Peabody. Yeah.
Okay,
Peabody
all
dance.
right. This looks old timey enough. That's probably it.
That's probably it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. He's in one of those vaudeville hats and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. He's doing a little swaggered walk with his hand on his hat.
Okay.
He's like walking with purpose and then kicking at the end of it. Now he's kind of like snapping along with him walking back and forth. Honestly, it kind of looks like the way your grandpa dances at every wedding he's ever been to.
There you go. That's why.
This does not look complicated whatsoever. What are you talking about?
Oh, it was a very complicated move.
Okay, so wait, a chick came and she's like, or a woman came and she's like around his arm now. Is this part of it? Is this?
Sure.
Now they're kind of like waltzing. Is this still?
That's the Peabody, man.
Why is this a complicated dance?
It was complicated. You know, you do the Peabody.
I mean, I could. There doesn't seem to be any like specific choreography here. It's kind of just like.
I'd like to see those kids, old Drake, do the Peabody, old Migos.
It's like it seems like a pretty standard waltz.
Man,
like a jazzy waltz.
Well,
It's like a waltz with attitude.
Well, he did the Peabody in the audition so perfectly that he landed a spot on Every Sailor on Broadway. Oh, Dev's going to show us the Peabody.
Jesus, Dev, I've already seen it. I've seen too much. This is the same video I was just watching.
Oh.
Y'all picked the same one?
Yeah.
I'll be quick next time. Now I got this set up.
Oh my God. This is great visual material
audio.
for the podcast. Yeah.
So he went to this audition, does his Peabody perfectly, lands a spot on Every Sailor. It was his first Broadway spot. You know, he proudly dressed as a woman. He loved doing it. And this was like his breaking into showbiz, basically, besides just sneaking onto that lot of Vitagraph back there. Now he's on stage. He's doing his thing. He gets paid $35 a week to do Every Sailor. And at the time, he said to him it was like a mountain of money. He was sending $15 of that back home to his mom every week. And she appreciated it, but also she was still like, get a real job, you know, like moms do.
You remember when he had 3 real jobs at one time?
Yeah, now he's just dancing. And he's still working these jobs, by the way.
Oh,
he's
what?
still working these jobs while he's got a Broadway show going.
And his mom's like, get another job?
Yeah, get another job. Get a real job. You need 6 jobs. And his father's just like rising up from the grave to punch him in the face one last time, you know. Throwing beer bottles from the grave. So
Like his father's urn is on the mantle and just falls and knocks him out.
Brilliant.
I got you one more time there, you little laddie, you little piece of shit.
You thought you were getting their confidence there, eh?
Hey, thought you were a little wee laddie.
You got to stay humble there, my friend.
Humble. You got to say
I'm
humble.
pretty sure half the time we're just speaking Scottish. We're speaking Scottish.
So mom says go get a real job. So he gets a job as a runner for a brokerage house and looked around for more stage work after Every Sailor was done. So after Every Sailor, he got the bug, you know. Mm-hmm. In 1920, he successfully auditioned for the William B. Friedlander, who, Dev, we've talked about, Broadway musical called Pitter Patter, where he'd make a whopping $55 a week.
Well, do you know how much that is in today's money?
I'll do actually, I think I did it already. Inflation. So he's making $700 a week.
Yeah, okay. That's, that's about like what you need to like bare minimum in LA.
Hey, a lot more than he made on those cellar doors.
Yeah.
Right?
So, yeah, I mean, that's bare minimum to survive if you live in a studio and have no expenses, so.
Yeah.
When you can afford to eat only 3 times a week.
He was sending 40 of those dollars back to his mom.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he was working for, to take care of his mom at this
right,
point.
for sure. Okay. And so at this point, like, are all the children, like, of working age, or are they still just, like, kids?
Yeah. Well, I mean, no. I guess he and his brother were the oldest, so at this time he was 19-ish, 20-ish. So his siblings were probably they were probably teenagers.
Oh, okay.
Well,
that's working age back then.
Yeah, that's true.
Dude, so his
Time
mom's
to
just
get back and break
stacking,
those-
dude. She's
Yeah,
got
man.
what you said, 7 kids, 2 died, right?
Right.
So it's just 5 kids, just all sending back money, dude. She's a stacking,
Dude,
bro.
she's stacking it up.
She's like, don't make me wake up your father's corpse.
Yeah, you're out there tap dancing while your little brother is breaking rocks in a mine all day, for 2 pennies a week.
For 2 pennies a week, but it's an honest 2 pennies.
It's an honest 2 pennies. Don't ever say your brother didn't work hard. So while he's on Pitter Patter, he danced in the chorus, acted, and being old James Cagney, being the multi-job type of dude he was, he also took roles, jobs backstage. He would porter the cast luggage, and he understudied for the lead while also dressing him, being his wardrobe guy.
Whoa.
And Dev, maybe you know a lot about theater and stuff. I mean, that might be pretty prevalent anyway. Like if you're doing a role in a play, maybe you take a lot of jobs backstage as well.
Yeah, especially in community theater, or a lot of people wear multiple hats about like get off stage, do this, do that, just because they don't have the staff or they can't afford to pay somebody, or the same person who's doing seamstress work is also an extra in the background.
Right.
And your stage manager, I stage managed and did tech for shows that I would jump on stage and be in the background just to be a body to fill out a group scene,
Yeah, and I guess it works with film that way too, especially like you said, like with independent film. Yeah, I mean, even if you're an actor, sometimes you find yourself wrapping up your acting work and going and helping move furniture or whatever.
Sure.
Or you could just be, Quentin and just put yourself in everything.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. So, speaking of the great musician Drake that has come up throughout this episode a bunch, among the chorus line performers,
666.
among the chorus line performers of this William B. Friedlander pitter patter, among the chorus line performers was 16-year-old Francis Willard Billy, quote unquote, Vernon, and they married. He got married to her in 1922. He met her on stage. She was 16. He was around 20. So back in the 1900s, that meant time to get married.
Interesting. I mean, obviously that's not great, but I do wonder if like, I mean, she's a child. That's abuse. But
Yeah.
I do wonder, like, at the time, though, was that just the society and, like, parents and being like, you have to be married before you're, like, not a teenager anymore, or else you're just, like, undesirable? Like,
most of the people we'll do film history episodes on married teenagers.
Okay.
Like,
right, yeah. So, but I mean, like, is that coming from, like, the parents, like, in society pushing them that young? Or do you think that's psychological abuse from their would-be husbands?
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know. She's a 16-year-old dancer. She's a chorus line performer on Broadway. She also got pitter patter successfully through auditioning. She's also, God knows what she's making. She's probably not making as much as the men are making on the show. She's probably making like, $30 a week. But I don't know how much her parents were involved in this, to be honest. I just know.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean,
Interesting.
Yeah, but yeah. So
did they ever divorce or anything? Or they were together forever?
They were married for 64 years.
Oh wow!
Until he died.
Oh wow. Okay. Well,
Yeah, he was 21. She was 16.
Interesting.
In 1920.
Yeah.
And 1920.
Interesting.
Cocaine and wildness. They were this power couple back in the day. Really. They were both these performing Broadway performers.
A real Jay-Z and Beyonce situation
a real
there.
Jay-Z and Beyonce, except for it's more like Drake and Millie Bobby Brown. So Cagney and his socially acceptable for the time child bride moved to Free Acres. So if you guys, I have two versions of what Free Acres is. There's one short version and there's one slightly longer. It's just like two paragraphs. Which would you guys rather hear? You
I want to hear the long version.
The long version of what Free Acres is?
Yeah.
Free Acres is an unincorporated community in New Jersey along the border of Berkeley Heights in Union County and Watchung in Somerset County. It was created in 1910 as a social experiment by Bolton Hall, an Irish-born New York entrepreneur, reformer, and follower of Leo Tolstoy.
What's a Leo Tolstoy?
He's. Let me find out exactly what he is. Tolstoy. He was a Russian writer, though. And
Okay.
He was.
So is this like a cult?
It is a commune.
Okay.
Basically, they moved to this commune. It's
Okay.
a 75-acre wooded community, 85 households. It's located about 35 miles west of New York City. Residents own their houses but pay a lease for their land which is owned collectively by the community.
So it's like a homeowners association fee.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, you
Okay.
pay your homeowners fees to free acres.
Okay.
And you own your house, but all your neighbors and you own the land.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So you can build it's a public land that you
Cool.
can build your private house on. Is
Cool.
basically what it is, and you pay to the free acres. They still do this to this day. It still exists.
Free acres specifically still exists.
Yeah, free acres. Free
Okay.
acres is still out there doing their thing. The association maintains the community streets and swimming pool, approves architectural changes to homes, and pays a lump sum in taxes to the 2 municipalities. And let's move to free acres. Deb, what do you think?
I mean, I think it sounds like a cult.
Yeah,
It's just a fancy business-minded cult.
This is again, like, I'm going back to James Cagney. In history, everybody saw as just like this real tough guy who played mobsters and stuff throughout his whole career. But this is a tap dancing man who lived on a commune. You know, like this is.
Wait. Did he continue to live there even after he got big?
No, he would move on later on. But as
Okay.
newlyweds, when
Okay.
they were newlyweds, Broadway performers, they went to
look,
free acres.
Listen, guys, it was the 20s. They were doing cocaine.
Yep.
They were living with a bunch of other swingers. Things got freaky, you know?
Things got freaky, baby.
We owned all the land. We owned each other's wives, you know? We owned everything.
Jesus.
Let's share, guys. This is a new New Jersey way to go.
The new New Jersey.
New Jersey.
Wait, so like was Coke just invented around this time? Or
No, but cocaine was very recently in the 1920s. It was in Coca-Cola,
Right.
And it was
No, it was prescribed. So a lot of doctors would prescribe
Okay.
it as an anesthetic and also a solution for migraines. And believe it or not, they would also prescribe it for babies teething.
yes.
So they
Oh,
would
that's
give
funny.
cocaine
Yeah.
to bababies for teething.
And if I'm
But,
not mistaken,
yeah.
this is
That's
the
so
time where
wild.
heroin was like a painkiller.
Oh.
I mean, heroin, you could go to
They
like
were
the
elixir.
CVS
So
was
wild.
heroin.
So
Yeah,
wild, dude.
They were sold in bottles, like glass bottles at the liquor store kind of thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you could go to
So
the
is
CVS.
cannabis.
You could go
Wow.
to the CVS and get a Hunter S. Thompson type of night.
Wait, so
over the
so
counter.
you need a prescription or anything? They
No.
just say just over the counter?
prescription. What's that?
I'll have some over the counter heroin, please.
Yeah.
Off brand.
My 5-year-old's having a lot of pain in his gums. Can you give me a black tar heroin?
I deal in cocaine and cocaine accessories.
Cocaine accessory. Oh, man. Film history. Pitter Patter wasn't a huge success, but it did well enough to run for 32 weeks, and it started Cagney off on a 10-year run with the vaudeville circuit.
Wow.
Yeah, so
So he didn't start acting until he was like in his 30s?
No. He's very young at this point. He was 21.
Right, yeah,
He
but
was
you said it ran for 10 years. I assume like once he got into like film acting,
Yes,
he stopped
yeah.
doing...
No, you're right about that. Yeah, he
Okay.
did vaudeville for 10 years before he ever did
Wow,
film.
so like, oh wow, so that's crazy. So he was like 30-something before
Right.
he started film acting.
Right.
Was that common at the time?
That was very common. A lot
Okay.
of people had a huge vaudeville career. It does happen these days, but not as much as it used to, where they'll pull people off Broadway and make them movie stars.
Sure.
You know, but yeah, so Pitter Patter wasn't a big success, but it did run for 32 weeks and started Cagney off on his 10-year run with vaudeville. One of the troops Cagney joined was Parker, Rand, and Leach, taking over the spot vacated when Archie Leach left. And Archie Leach left his troupe, and he changed his name to Cary Grant.
Okay.
He went on to do a few films here and there. Old small time Cary Grant. You know about Cary Grant, right?
No, I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cary Grant was one of the biggest movie stars. of
Oh,
all time.
okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were being earnest. I thought it was like he did a couple things, then you know.
Because I was waiting to say
Oh.
that line and be like, change his name to Cary Grant, and everybody be like, oh, and that didn't happen.
I was impressed. I didn't realize.
Well, so Dev, I need
That
you
was
on.
who
I
that
need
was.
you on the O's. 'Cause this just goes right over
Well,
my head.
I was very entertained because I thought you knew and just didn't react. And then to realize it
Unimpressed.
just went completely over your head. I was like, oh, shit.
Just unimpressed.
This is the new film history. I like this. This is like Drake will have certain things where there's gaps, and that's cool. That's
different
where
eras.
that's what we'll fill in. Cary Grant.
Also, a bit of a learning curve about this podcast for me is going to be like, because I've done podcasts and stuff before, but this is the first one where there's being a story being told to me, and like sometimes I forget that this is a podcast. And I'm just like listening to you like tell me interesting facts. And I'm just like crazy, and I'm like, oh fuck, I need to like interject so there's a conversation. Here.
No, that's okay. This is going pretty naturally right now. This is good. So he takes over for Cary Grant and Cary Grant's vaudeville troupe, and he travels around with them. And I mean, you got to kind of imagine if you're filling in the space for Cary Grant after he leaves. For one, big shoes to fill, but number two, you have landed with the right people. In my opinion, I mean, if one of them became Cary Grant, you probably got good chances that you also are going to come out of this pretty good.
Sure, yeah, almost like SNL. It's like you go to SNL, you're probably gonna you got a career
do
for life.
Stuff.
Yeah,
exactly. You're gonna make some money. Not right now, but you're going to.
Vaudeville was SNL. Okay.
Vaudeville was SNL. That is a perfect way of putting it.
Cool.
But with more heroin. Well, I don't know.
Well, I don't know, but I have no idea.
Cary Grant is. I put him like where probably like George Clooney will land in history.
Okay.
I think he was George Clooney of his time, but probably honestly bigger. I don't know. I mean, George Clooney's huge, but Cary Grant was gigantic.
Yeah.
We'll do a whole episode on him. No doubt about it. So James and his wife Frances, like I said earlier, they toured separately on vaudeville, but sometimes when they would be in the same town, they would reunite for a show, and they called it Vernon and Nye. And Nye was kind of like a rearrangement of the last letter, three letters of Cagney.
Okay.
Yeah, James Cagney had like a, he was Mr. Artsy Fartsy type of guy
Weird.
usually.
Okay.
And so when they would come back together, they would do a show together, which I imagine was a lot of fun to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, let's put a cap on that. That is the first episode for James Cagney.
Okay.
I think I got you guys.
This is everything leading up to his film career.
This is everything leading up to his film career.
Yeah.
He's now like very successful doing vaudeville, 10-year circuit. He starts out on Broadway. He meets his wife. And
how much do you think he gets paid like a week at this point?
At this point, he was making $55 a week for that Broadway show. I don't know if vaudeville paid as much, to be honest, but also you're touring.
Okay.
So I do imagine
so you have less bills and stuff. It's not like you have like an apartment.
Probably like per diem.
Yeah.
I imagine you get like a per diem.
For sure.
Dev knows more about like a touring theater show than I do. I'm not quite sure.
Well, I mean, room and board is. I mean, now room and board, it's all taken care of and everything. But back then, even it's room and board covered, and depending on the outfit, like the production company, it would have per diem or not. Not really, unless they were like super popular and famous.
Right.
So at this point, do you think his mom still thinks he's a failure?
Probably.
Okay.
Absolutely. It was 1920, and you're an actor. Like, what the hell are you doing? You're supposed to be out there on Wall Street or some shit. And I mean, that's even today. Becoming an actor is.
So were there any rich vaudeville stars? Was there ever a vaudeville troupe that was like, this guy is banking like we think of actors banking now?
I'm sure. I am absolutely sure.
Yes.
Oh yeah, people were absolutely making buku bucks on vaudeville.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me see. Dev's Googling it too.
And while you guys Google that, maybe this is, I don't know if you know this off top, about how much were tickets to a vaudeville show?
I mean, comparatively, tickets are probably cheap. Like as far as prices, because you're not going to a theater that's very fancy and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like a pop-up show kind of setting or something. A lot of times they happen in bars with stages.
Okay.
But as you can see, like some of them, Buster Keaton, Gracie Allen, Judy Garland, Bob Hope.
Oh, wow.
I mean, vaudeville has been a staple point of like American culture, and it's a uniquely American style of performing, invented and only really performed here until much later. I mean, here we go. Mickey Rooney, Walter Brennan, James Dunn. Was it done?
Yeah, they were absolutely.
I would say.
But I mean, were they rich
like
when they were vaudeville performers? I mean, because like if James Cagney was stepping in for
vaudeville was more of like a stepping stone. Like imagine it as like
that's what I'm acting like. So no one's rich while they're doing vaudeville.
Not no
I
one,
mean,
but very
Okay.
few people.
You got to define rich, because like you mean rich by like New York City at the time standards?
Yes.
Probably not. But
Okay.
rich by like somebody in the Midwest who came
Right.
from a nothing town.
Okay.
They're probably making great money, you know?
Okay,
Like that's
I
the
see.
incentive. So like they use vaudeville as a vehicle to get out of the small Midwest town, to
I
be
see.
a foot in the door in the industry, go to Chicago, go to San Francisco, go to New York, become an actual performer, or even Los Angeles with film then. But that was the template for like the late 1800s
Right.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
into
cool.
the 1900s.
Yeah, and so like I imagine since James Cagney was making $55 a week on Broadway, maybe he wasn't making that much, but he was probably making okay money, you know, out there touring and
Okay.
stuff. And some people, yeah, absolutely. There were some people who would get rich off of this, you know, but it was probably that thing where it was like a 1%, you know,
Okay.
where
It's whoever's producing the show. So a lot of the time it's the show manager, or which would be like the band manager.
Okay.
So they would be in charge of booking and going where they're going to go, and how much they're going to charge, and then how much they're going to pay the talent, how much they pay for the room and board. They manage the book, so they're going to make the majority of the money off the top.
Right, and yeah, like we were talking about with Will Rogers, his vaudeville salary was pretty good. He was doing like rope tricks on stage.
He was famous and rich as fuck.
What-
doing vaudeville.
Yeah.
Explain what a rope trick is.
He would literally go up on stage and he had a rope and
Like
he would,
lasso.
Yeah, he would lasso and he would jump through it and he would lasso a cow and he was
was a
doing
cowboy.
rope stuff. He was a cowboy, you know.
rope stuff.
Yeah, and he would like sit in his living room up in the Santa Monica Mountains in his house and rope shit. He would like practice his rope tricks. Go back and listen to the Will Rogers episode of Film History.
when
That's a
it's
really
available
good one. Yeah,
later.
Yeah, when it's available later. But yes,
You know, in 7 months.
exactly. But yeah, I really wanted to do James Cagney first, and I'm glad I did. And it's very interesting to me because, like I said, like, you know, when I started the research on James Cagney, I wasn't quite sure what I'd find, but I was very sure it was going to be a very tough New York guy who played a bunch of gangsters like Al Pacino or something. But much like Al Pacino as well, I found a lot of unexpected things about James Cagney. He was many more layers than I thought he would be.
Yeah,
you
this
know?
is fascinating. I mean, this man had it's like he did everything once.
He did everything.
Remember? Do you guys remember that show from maybe the mid aughts or early aughts or something, or maybe it was late '90s when called the Pretender?
Oh yeah.
Where the guy's whole thing was he could do every job, and
Yeah.
so he investigated crimes or some shit by like doing every job.
Yeah.
It's like James Cagney. He
That's
was just
exactly
like he
it.
just
That's
does
it.
every job.
And you will see that is a recurring theme throughout all these people we're going to cover in film history.
Interesting.
Is basically the moral of the story is that people used to do a lot more shit than we do now.
Interesting, fascinating. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess just at the time there wasn't as defined of a path to become an actor, so people just kind of stumbled into it later in life instead of
Yeah.
like trying from the jump to like be an actor.
Right.
Unless you're like really passionate about the theater.
Because like acting back then was considered like, meh, okay, and then I guess I'll do that. But
Yeah.
like it wasn't like held to the esteem as it is in modern pop culture.
Right. I'm going to be an actor.
Right.
Like this was before the golden age of Hollywood.
Right.
Right.
And the golden age was the golden age because that's when it became, you know. I mean, in silent films, you had the Gilded Age, I guess. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, those
Right.
guys who were making $20,000 a week in 1920. Yeah.
Doing what?
Right.
Silent films.
Oh,
Charlie Chaplin
shit.
Buster
made
Keaton.
Buster Keaton.
Charlie
that's
Chaplin.
Yeah.
And they also started and owned and operated their own studios.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah,
Interesting.
that's James Cagney, y'all, and that's Film History, episode 1.
Nice.
And we have we started coming up with ideas for what to do next for the next. You know, we have 100 episodes slated. I mean, this
Yeah.
show could never end. Like
Yeah.
there is so
Nobody ever does.
It never will. It never will. So I hope you guys are ready for the long haul because you're going to be stuck with us for 150 years of this
Yeah.
podcast.
And this will get better. This will get better too.
This will get better,
This will get better.
he says. I feel great about this.
Me too, man. This was awesome. This was fun.
Yeah, I had a great time. No, this is good. Like I said, sometimes I just like I forget that we're recording and I'm just listening to a story and I'm like, go on, and I'm like, oh no, that was.
No, it's all good, man. All good.
Well, I'll tell you what. When I plan to come in studio in like a week or something,
Yeah.
and then maybe we'll be a little bit more seamless.
Perfect.
Nice. Well, also I'm shaking the rust off. I haven't done a podcast in like a fucking year and a half or something. Like basically since COVID started, I just stopped. Podcast is no audio medium. I easily could have like done it remotely. I just didn't do it. So like I'm shaking the rust off too. So.
Yeah.
You guys were great though. You guys did. You guys did
Shaking the
incredible.
rust off, baby. Well, all right, y'all. That is film history.
Wait, should we plug our socials and stuff?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So you can find me on Instagram at Drake Cummings, on Twitter at Drake_Cummings.
Go ahead, Deb.
I just love how right in the middle of the sign off we're like, yo, we gotta go plug our socials.
Yeah.
Like it was the timing of it that was funny because you were just like film history. Whoa,
Wait a minute.
whoa. Hold the phone. Stop the
We'll
fucking
do it after the
presses.
sign off. So
No, it was humorous to me. Sailor. My name's Devin Mueller. Sailor_Dev. Abracadabrafilms.com or MyFish. Check out a fishing app where you get rewarded for fishing.
Boom. And you can find me in a back alleyway with a bottle of whiskey and a needle of heroin. That is Film History, the history of film.